Hello, everyone. This is the Parks Academy. This is Stephen on the horn. And as you know, Paige and I just recently had our little boy. And so I am in the process of doing some prep work and doing some shows while she is recovering and recuperating and just flat out enjoying time at home and not podcasting like she should be. And frankly, probably like how I should be too. So here's something. Last week, I had our guest on and we were recording. We had some good rhythm going, and about like 4 or 5 minutes in, my power went out due to storms in the Baltimore area. And so we had to promptly stop it. And I was really bummed, but we have back on the show. He was gracious enough to reschedule. We have Steven on the show with us, not me, but Steven from Dintroverts, an incredible Instagram account that basically walks you through how to be a Disney parks fan as an introvert. So, Steven, thank you so much for coming on. I'm super glad to have you.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So, I would love it if you could just tell me a little bit about your account and what got you kind of started in this direction in the first place.
Sure. So yeah, Dintroverts, it's more or less what I call an introvert's guide to Disney parks. I'd like to say that it's one part you learn about yourself as an introvert, and one part learning about the parks and how to enjoy them more as an introvert. Um, so I focus on things or ways to recharge your social battery, quiet places to go just to take a moment and relax. Um, One of my goals in life, not just at the parks, is to avoid crowds, and so we'll talk about different strategies to avoid the masses and all of that. We'll talk about different attractions or rides that maybe are more introvert friendly, and then on the reverse, some that are maybe some to be aware of or possibly avoid if there's some audience participation. And then we also just talk about specific details in the park, because a lot of the time introverts tend to really pay attention to those, and they appreciate those kinds of things, and they'll take the time to read the signs, read the backstory, and kind of really dive into the details. So more or less, that's what I focus on.
That's really cool. For those of you, for those who like aren't as familiar, I mean, I think everyone is kind of familiar to an extent of introverted versus extroverted. And you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong on this. I could be, but my understanding, and I'm an introvert too. Like I know that I am because I hate being around big groups of people, and just to uh, you know, just to completely out myself, I get very anxious in large groups of people and big crowds, and I don't really like being a part of them as much as I can help it. And so this is where, I could be wrong on this, but what I've heard is that it's not just like, oh, I'm introverted and I hate being around people. It's more like you as an introvert get your energy from being alone, whereas extroverts typically get their energy and are recharged by being around other people. So my wife and I are exact opposites in that way. Paige is like, she gets all of her energy from being with people. She loves being in an office, going to parties, the more the merrier. And do you find that like kind of true about yourself as well? Like that whole idea?
For sure. Yes. Yeah, definitely. I like to look at it, like you said, the energy. Where do you get your energy, or where does your energy get drained? Um, and yeah, typically, like you said, it's in social situations and things like that. Um, and it kind of goes hand in hand sometimes with, not all introverts are anxious or shy people necessarily, but they tend to be related. So you'll oftentimes find an introvert to be also anxious or shy, or different things like that. But there's all kinds of introverts, of course, but those are some of the typical traits you'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of throwing a blanket, um, like a large blanket over stereotypes of what we could be, right? Because I know that there's a lot of different types and a lot of different, kinds of ways that people might express that or feel it. But just from like the standard thinking of, not wanting to be around big groups of people or feeling like you have to kind of escape from crowds and from big things to regain your energy. It's funny because Disney in and of itself, Disney parks, it is so energy draining, whether you like to be around people or you don't like to be around people. I think everybody understands when I say after 2 or 3 days in Disney, your legs are just exhausted, and it's like you don't feel like you can keep going anymore. So I find it kind of paradoxical that people who do struggle with being in large crowds, or don't not loving like major sensory experiences, which I'm kind of like that too, do love Disney so much. So how do you how do you find yourself recharging when you do need a break from like the sensory stimulation at the parks?
Right. And yeah, that's an important topic because, if you don't pay attention to yourself and realize when you need to recharge, your whole park experience will change. I mean, you can be the biggest park fan in the world, but then if you're just mentally not there, you're exhausted, you won't find it enjoyable. Um, so, one option to fully recharge would be, of course, you can actually leave the park and go back to your resort. I think that's one reason why I think it's best to stay on property if you can. Um, but even staying on site, it can feel like a bit of a chore to take precious time out of your park day and go back to the resort. So I do try to find ways to um, stay close, but not too far away. So, for example, if I'm at Magic Kingdom, I might just exit and hop on the monorail. Um, and the monorail ride itself, I think, can be a recharging way to just get away from it all. But then, of course, you can stop at different resorts along the way, maybe go to a lounge or even just a spot in the lobby, or some of the
Right.
common areas have some nice spots.
Yeah, I personally am a huge fan of the Disneyland Railroad because it's such
Oh, yes.
it's deeply underrated. Not enough people do it, and I know that there's kind of a little more hype around the Magic Kingdom Railroad since it's been closed. It was closed for so long with Tron and everything. But I find that to be one of the most enjoyable ways to just kind of take a beat, and get out of the crowds and to be able to see the crowds from afar, especially like in
Hmm.
Disneyland, we can still see them, and you go through kind of all this stuff, but then you end up right back, or you can get off wherever. It's a great way to kind of still enjoy yourself, and get away from all those, all the crowds and stuff. And I do appreciate in Magic Kingdom how you were saying, you can just kind of head out and take the monorail loop, or like a boat, and go across the water to the Polynesian or whatever you want to do. I mean, those are like extremely uh to me anyway, those are really good options, for sure. So um when you are planning, I know, so you live in Florida, correct?
Yes. Yep. We
Okay.
are locals now.
So like Orlando-ish locals.
Yep, in Orlando. Mhm.
Okay. So this doesn't as much apply to you then, but for those who are like, maybe in a position where they don't go to the parks, but if they're fanatics and they only end up going like once a year, which is still a lot probably for some people, what do you feel about like planning your Disney park visit, to like down to the minute, so you make sure you kind of have everything ready to go? Or do you kind of prefer to make it a little bit more spontaneous? And also, being someone who goes to the parks a lot, do you also kind of keep in mind like almost like your exit strategy if you feel like you need to kind of get somewhere quick, or if it's just becoming something like it's like a really long hot day in Animal Kingdom and you just kind of want to get out of the crowds for a minute, you need a place to just chill, like do you think of those things ahead of time, or is it kind of all like spur of the moment, or more spontaneous?
Right. Well, I think I'm definitely a planner, even as a local in Orlando. I like to have a plan in place so I can avoid any surprises. And I
Mhm.
think I can't speak for every introvert, but I feel like that's accurate. Introverts don't really want surprises, especially if it's in large groups, around others and in a social situation. They want to avoid any surprises. But yeah, it's just nice to know what to expect. And being around the crowds is overwhelming enough, but I feel like if you have some sort of strategy or plan in mind, you can still feel like you're in control to a certain extent.
Mhm.
Um, but kind of on the flip side too is I think it's important to remember that even if you have this laid out plan, it can fall apart. And so some things are out of your control if a ride goes down, or maybe someone, gets a headache in your group, or
Right.
there's a sudden downpour because, Florida has tons of
Yeah.
rain. But
Mhm.
so I also try to just stay flexible because I get so hard set on my being a planner and having everything mapped out for me. But
Hmm.
if something goes wrong, then I take it to heart. So I try
Yeah,
to stay flexible and I don't let it get me
that
down, kind of thing.
yeah. Well, and the benefit that you have, especially, is being a local, you kind of know all the spots that you can retreat to or go to. Like, I know for me personally, I have, whether it's in the 4 Disney parks in Florida or the 2 Disney parks in California, I know exactly where I would go at almost any given minute if I just needed a second. And it's not like I like need to, completely escape the crowds or whatever, but if I just kind of want to take a beat and just chill for a minute and assess, kind of what's going on around me and what I'm feeling, I have all those places planned out. So I'm sure for you, like, that's one of the big benefits of being there so often is you kind of, I'm sure, know all the spots where you can go or pop into and kind of um get that moment, because there's a lot of places that are just frankly less popular than others, whether it's a restaurant or a shop or just some little corner of the park.
Yeah, that's the truth for sure. Yeah, I'm always on the lookout for those kind of quieter spots. I try to curate all these different lists, but then sometimes I have to tweak it depending on, crowd patterns or
Mhm,
they change, park operations all of a sudden for a certain
mhm.
area. But yeah, you can find them in all the parks. You just kind of have to look.
Yeah, exactly, you have to be on alert. So I don't want to uh I certainly don't want to give away all your secrets, but I have to ask you, where is, I kind of want to go through all 4 parks, but like let's just talk about, for instance, Epcot, which is like such a crazy busy park, especially during festivals, which it feels like they have a festival all the time now. Um,
Yep.
where's like your go-to spot in Epcot to, kind of get out of the crowds for a minute or to be able to just take a sec?
So I love Epcot. That's probably my favorite park. So I'm there quite often. But so okay, let's see. So probably one area I love is back in the World Showcase in Japan.
Mhm.
If you head back in there and to the left, you'll find a bunch of seating tucked away, part of the Katsura Grill seating area.
Yeah.
That's really nice, shaded, lots of trees. Um, yeah, it seems like even during like a busy lunchtime, it's really not that busy. So I do like it back there. And you've got the koi pond, and it's
Yeah.
just a very
Mhm.
serene place just to walk around. So
Yeah, that's actually funny. We just recently wrapped up an entire mini series about World Showcase where we like dove into every single pavilion, and Japan was one that when we talked about it, we discussed a lot of the intricacies of Japan and how it's almost like a place that you just want to go into and be kind of quiet. Maybe China more so in some ways because of the way that it's specifically built out. But yeah, Japan, like, it's such a beautiful spot to go to and just take a little bit of time. My personal favorite is Morocco, because even though Morocco can be kind of crazy, once you go through, where like the fountain is and all the mosaics and stuff, you can just almost just keep on going back. And it feels like it's much deeper to me than the other pavilions. And I'm a photographer, so I like to just kind of take photos of like all the little spots and the details and stuff because it's just so beautiful, and it's a great place, I think, to kind of first of all immerse yourself in a pavilion that gives you an opportunity to feel like you've actually been transported somewhere and that you're not in a Disney park. But also just to, enjoy what they've got there and take a second kind of off the main circle of the World Showcase walkthrough.
yeah, that's a great spot, great pavilion. I do, like you said, it goes far back in, and there's just lots of kind of nooks and crannies that you don't find in some of the other pavilions. So I do like that one back there too.
Yeah, it's great. How do you feel about, like, for instance, like shows and stuff? So since we're in Epcot, let's talk about that for a second. So, are you kind of one of those people that for fireworks or for shows or whatever, that you like want to kind of hang back, or are you, are you good to kind of sort of get in the front and see as much as you can?
Fireworks are tough, that's for sure. I do feel like at least at Epcot, the crowds can be dispersed around the World Showcase Lagoon, so it doesn't feel like
Right.
a Magic Kingdom situation.
Hmm.
That one's rough.
Yeah.
But
Oh my gosh, it's yeah, don't get me started. It's bad.
it's rough during the fireworks, and then the exit is the mass
Mhm.
exodus is also
Yeah,
tough too. Um, so yeah, honestly, I don't see Magic Kingdom fireworks nearly as much as I used to because of the crowds. But Epcot fireworks I do see more often. Um, and I think if you're on vacation, it seems like you've got to see the fireworks. It's just a
right.
way to close out your night.
Exactly.
But as a local, it kind of, you might hop in and see them every now and then, but you don't feel like it, your trip is missing because you didn't see the fireworks at the end of the night.
Sure. Uh,
Um,
with Epcot, I do love that you said that there are more options because I totally feel that. So, um, one of my favorite places to watch the show in Epcot, whatever the show may be, is they constantly feel like they're rotating it. I love to be up on the steps. Speaking of Japan Pavilion, I like to go up on the steps of Tepanedo, and see it from up there because you got a great vantage point. It's you just kind of go up to the door and then go to your right, or walk out the door and go to your left, I suppose. And you can just see you have this. I mean, there might be some trees that obstruct the view a little bit, but overall you have a great view and you're very much out of the way. Similarly in Magic Kingdom, one of my favorite memories of seeing fireworks was when Paige and I we 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 left Hollywood Studios kind of early one night and we decided to go over to Magic Kingdom just to like hit up another ride or two, and we got there right as the fireworks show was starting, and so we were able to get in, but we were like way in the back, by the concourse in Main Street. And we ended up just going up to the steps of all things the train station, right? And it was great because we were able to be in a place where we could just kind of lean up against the railing and there wasn't a lot of people up there. I mean, there was enough, but it was more people kind of like us who were looking for their distance and kind of waiting to find, their own little spot where they can kind of camp out and enjoy themselves and look at all the people that were kind of out of their minds, lining Main Street and just taking up, I mean, just taking up the whole thing, sidewalks, streets, everything. And it's very stress inducing, and it was like extremely stress inducing to me as a kid. The first time I ever went to Disney, I was 9, and I went to Disneyland with my family, and my mom and sister went back one night to go to bed early because they were tired. And so my dad and I stayed out late. We rode Splash Mountain like 5 times in a row. We had a great time, and then we watched the fireworks. And I distinctly remember like my dad and I like clasping arms, kind of like this. And he was like trying to hold my hand while we were walking through the crowd, and people were like pushing on our arms to get through. And I was a small kid, so I was very afraid that this was going to be it for me. Like I was just going to be lost from my dad forever. Which, I mean, if you get lost in Disney, that's probably the best place to get lost, really. I mean, if you're gonna get lost
True.
in the crowd, um, uh, because I'm sure they would connect you where you need to go. But that kind of was like very formative for me. If I don't prefer this, and I'm an adult now and I can push my way through the crowds, but I also don't like getting pushed, and it's just too much shoulder to shoulder. So yeah, I love that. I think
Exactly.
recommending places to go is extremely useful.
For sure. Yeah. It's also funny too, because we're talking about fireworks and I can hear the Magic Kingdom fireworks because I live close to Magic Kingdom, and so
Yeah.
they're going off right now. So
Oh, see, and you have a
um,
great place to watch them then. You're already pretty much set.
yeah, if I look just right off of my front porch, I can see them, but I have to look through the in between the houses.
That's cool. I
So
envy you. So I
yeah.
certainly don't. I just get thunderstorms out in Baltimore. Um, yeah. So what about like, I mean, for like night for shows and stuff is I know that there's some like for instance, Phantasmic and Indiana Jones. Those ones are kind of different because there's actually order to, even though it's busy, there's order. You have a place to go, a place to sit, and so you're kind of already set. But for like other, kinds of performances and shows and stuff at night, eh, is that something kind of like besides living there? Is that something you would avoid too, or do you have kind of like a strategy for that specifically Hollywood Studios in
Like,
this case?
yeah, for sure. Those ones actually, like you said, those are not nearly as traumatizing because
Yeah.
yeah, there is a structure, and you pretty much are guided to more or less the section that you should sit in, and people fill in the bleachers or the rows as they go. And so, yeah, those are great. The hard part is the exit, the exiting of everybody getting
Hmm.
up and trying to leave at the same time, which
Yeah.
can be a little intense. But um, oftentimes, you can also just hold back and just wait for the crowds to leave. I mean,
Hmm.
everybody's pretty eager to exit, so
Yeah.
you'll be one of the few people that just kind of stay put.
Yeah. It's crazy how just like how people have such a herd mentality when it comes to getting in and then leaving and everyone kind of going at once like so I would consider not really anymore because now that I live on the East Coast, but growing up Disneyland was my home park. Like that's where I went to most often. My family would go quite a bit. And so, you know, being out there, you only have two options really. You can either see World of Color, which is fantastic, or the fireworks show at Disneyland, which is also fantastic. And so, because you have like it's so condensed to just those two parks with two great shows that everyone wants to see, it's the same. You kind of don't really have a choice besides just having to go live in that chaos. And then one of the things too that I found to be a little bit aggravating is I don't remember. This had to have been the last time I was in Disneyland with my wife. In 2020, we went in January and like just missed the closing just by like a couple of months. So we were really grateful for that. Um, but yeah, we went to go see World of Color, and the thing is, like the cast members were kind of like waving you on to keep going, so there wasn't really a lot of moment or opportunity to stay back for us. Um, so that's kind of a bummer if you end up in that in that pool or line of people who are kind of being forced out.
That's tough. Yeah, my home park actually used to be Disneyland as well, because before we moved down to Orlando, we were much closer to Disneyland in California.
Nice.
And I love Disneyland, but yeah, the everything is just kind of like you said, condensed, smaller. The pathways are more narrow.
Hmm.
I think last time we were there we were in the midst of a fireworks and then a nighttime parade, and then I think they had a something on the facade of It's a Small World, all
Yeah.
more or less at the same time, and so it was just bottlenecks everywhere,
It's
and,
too much.
and it was tough, but still a lot
So
of fun.
my strategy for Disneyland fireworks, and this is free, but my strategy is that I'm an incredibly big Star Wars geek. Like I love Star Wars. It's one of my favorite, things, even before like um the like I was a big prequel fan as a kid, like any big Star Wars buff should be. But my first time in Galaxy's Edge was in 2020 in January, and um I went in Disneyland because Paige and I were living in California at that period in time. And we watched the Disney the castle fireworks from Galaxy's Edge, so right up by Docking Bay 7, where you're kind of up there, and it's by Dock Ondors, and you're kind of like right by Docking Bay, and, that area right, the stairs go down to the Millennium Falcon. We were just camped out up there, and we got some food and we hung out and we just waited, and it was so fun because you got to see like the fireworks go over the spires, and it was all lit up beautifully. And um there's a lot of people there, but everyone is kind of there because they just want to experience the fireworks from like a different vantage point, or maybe they don't need to see the whole show, they can just kind of see whatever. And that was an ideal situation for me, like seeing the fireworks come up over the spires and just really loving. I mean, I just loved every minute of it. And afterward, you're just free to hang out. You can go back to the shops. You can, if you have a reservation at Oga's, if you're so lucky, you can go in there. Like there's all kinds of different things you can do, if you just kind of find different spots to go. And that is just like that's like one of my biggest hacks is seeing the fireworks shows from Galaxy's Edge if you're in Disneyland specifically.
I love that idea. I'm making notes here. Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like once you see it once, I don't know, properly with the projections and everything, after that, then you can kind of explore and start seeing it from different angles or different places. So
Mhm.
yeah, I love that idea. I should definitely do that.
Do you have like I feel like we've been really sitting on this whole like nighttime show topic for a while, but I'm into it. Do you have a specific show that you really feel like you like especially, or one that almost feels more refreshing and stressful to experience.
Goodness, you know, I will never forget Illuminations. That was my show. That was my jam. So sadly, yeah, we haven't really had, or at least I don't think we've had quite the replacement yet, but we'll see with this new Luminous. I'm very interested to see what happens there. But um, yeah, so I mean, Illuminations was just a relaxing show, I think. Let's see what else. I keep going back to all the shows that are not around.
Yeah,
So Animal Kingdom had that, which I don't know. I actually really liked it. A lot of people didn't, but um, I loved their nighttime show though. They had the music.
Rivers of Light, that one on the
Yes,
water. That I was gonna say when you were finished, that is actually was my favorite nighttime show because it was so beautiful, it was so simple, and the crowds were smaller. Yeah, that
exactly,
one's yeah, it's a shame that it hasn't come back, but Rivers of Light was unmatched. I mean, it was just perfect. It was a perfect show,
for
honestly.
sure. No,
Yeah.
I'm glad you're a fan too, because yeah, I still listen to the music while
Mhm.
I'm working.
Yeah, I do miss that one like quite a bit. But I mean, fortunately now you can at least go to Pandora and just hang out there at night, with all the bioluminescence. And that's a great place to be at night too, because it can be pretty quiet. At least. So that's I guess depending on when you go. But every time I've been to Pandora at night, it's pretty quiet. It's not a show, but it has its own kind of magical charm to it that feels, different. It's something else. So
That's true. Yeah,
um
it's nice.
very, very cool. Yeah. So um uh, I'm probably gonna put an ad break in here, so don't even worry about it. I'm just trying to think here. Um, uh, so how do you feel about like you know we talked a little bit about crowds. We've obviously talked about like uh, there being a lot of people in the parks and stuff. But how do you feel about like waiting in lines for attractions and just kind of being forced into spots where like you have to be in these big kind of confined places, whether it be um, a line like Space Mountain or, something where it's really backed up and you just kind of have to hang in there. Like, how has that been? How does that sort of figure in your decision making for which ride you go on and whether or not it's kind of like part of your day or not?
Right. Lines can be tough. I do think with a line, I feel like there is progression that I'm kind of getting through a line. Whereas if I'm just in the midst of a big crowd somewhere, I kind of
Mhm.
start to get a little claustrophobic. But with a line, I feel like there is a end in sight. And I'm a fairly patient person, I would say. I don't know if you want to ask other people I know, but um, and I'd like to think that maybe that's an introvert trait. I'm not sure. Would you consider yourself a patient person?
For the most part.
Yeah.
My wife has just very recently uncovered that I do have some road rage. I didn't
Aha.
really know that I had before, but I guess I do. Like I get very frustrated with people who act stupid on the road. I
Understandable.
think I'm pretty patient when it comes to being in Disney. Yeah, I think I'm pretty patient. Sometimes I have a hard time with like the biggest thing that makes me impatient at Disney is when people stop in the middle of a walkway. Like I live by this philosophy of like keep moving and get out of the way. Like, keep on moving, go where you're going. And if you're gonna stop, keep moving and then move over there, like move out of the way. Um, so people that like are big groups and they stop to look at a map or something, that makes me very frustrated. But I think for the most part, I could be wrong too, but I'd like to think that I'm patient when I'm in the
Yeah.
parks.
I think, yeah, I mean, it just depends on the situation, but yeah, I feel like I'm mostly patient in the parks. And I think introverts tend to be good listeners, so I feel like we're patient enough to listen to people just talk and talk and talk. So there might be some carryover there to just being patient and lines and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, as far as in actual lines in the queues, I mean, everybody tends to say, "Oh, just go straight to Genie Plus, and that'll help." But sometimes you bypass all the elaborate cues
Yeah.
that you don't get to see. And so personally,
Right.
I enjoy looking at all those
Hmm.
details and things like that. So um, sometimes I would prefer, well, not always, but I sometimes I'd rather just go through the regular queue just to be able to see it all,
Yeah.
because that helps, the time go by for me is just to kind of take in the details and kind of see how they're tying in the story and that thing, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
You do miss a lot of details when you're just kind of going through a line quickly. You're right. Like, or if you do Genie Plus, like it's funny, we literally just briefly spoke about like Pandora and Avatar. Flight of Passage is a great ride. It's a lot of fun. And the last time we were there, I did Genie Plus for it. It was one of those ones where I caved and I was stupid and I actually bought the, whatever it was, $17 to make sure that I could ride it. And that was just because we had our 10-month-old with us at the time, and we Paige and I were like, we want to go on this and we want to make sure that we don't have to, each wait our turn and take forever and waste the day. Um, but I missed a lot of stuff. Like I just went through and like you get to see an avatar like floating in water when you're in the regular line, kind of in their little chamber and all these little, like experiments and all kinds of things that they have going on in their labs. And you really, really miss that, if you don't go through that. I think that it's a very fair point. Because there are so many lines where if you bypass that stuff, it definitely does pull away from the experience to an extent.
Yeah, that's a good one. Flight of Passage. They have a lot of cool details.
Yeah. Same with like, Rise of the Resistance or, some of those others. It's definitely a shame if you have to miss out on that. Um, so we are quickly, for whatever reason, we are approaching I shouldn't say for whatever reason because it is September, I suppose. But we have really approached like the quintessential holiday time in the parks where you've got Mickey's Not So Scary, you've got Christmas coming up, like all these crazy things. Are you big into going to those kind of events? Like, are you big into the parties and stuff that they throw, or are those kind of a little too crazy?
I actually think we go to more of those events and seasonal celebrations now that we're local because it's just easier. We're already here. We don't have to plan a whole vacation around a party or the event. So
That's true.
yeah, I mean, we check them out. And like you said, some of them can, depending on the event, be more peoply. But we have tickets for the Halloween party later this month, and then tickets to the Christmas party uh, in November, as well as we did Jollywood Nights just to see what that's all about. But we purposely bought tickets in the month before the actual holiday,
Yeah.
because typically the earlier parties are less crowded, and that's my main goal in life is to avoid the crowds. But yeah, I can still be strategic with the events, and go to early parties. And if the parties have multiple parades or multiple shows, hang out till the later shows, later
Yeah.
parades, that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I think they're still a lot of fun. I think it's just a good way to celebrate the season. So I think they're
100%.
worth it.
That makes sense. I sometimes forget that they're just because I'm not local. I sometimes forget that you can go like really early in the season, or you don't have to go like right before Halloween or whatever. So that's smart. I think that's because that does seem like it's a little bit more for people who aren't planning their trips around it, so that actually makes a lot of sense. And it's nice too to if you are in a position where you can kind of go more frequently, that you don't have to cram everything in all at once, which I'm sure is a huge advantage, for your situation. So that's really great. Regarding like your kind of going back to and like regarding your Instagram account, um it's only been active for since like I think January was when you kind of first started it up.
Exactly. Yeah. It just was this year that I decided. I've had the website dintroverts.com for a little while, just kind of tinkering and pretending to know how to do web design. But the Instagram was just this year kind of kicked it off right around World Introvert Day in January. So
That's super cool. What was like how is it how have you seen it kind of so one of the things that I've noticed is and I think we talked about this before my power went out last week, but Disney is very, very much of a performer's destination. You see a lot of vloggers, a lot of influencers, a lot of people who kind of like to shine the spotlight on themselves. Not a big deal, it's their prerogative and that's fine. But um, you do see a lot of people who really are, very outgoing. And it's not to say that introverts aren't outgoing, but primarily you see extroverts who are kind of out there and really, performing and being there, kind of upbeat, crazy, out their selves, and that's great. But there really doesn't seem to be a place for people who, need to take the parks at a different pace. So how have you felt like your do you feel, I mean, did you kind of feel like there was like a need there that need to be met? And is that sort of why you started the website and the Instagram account and stuff like that?
Exactly. Yeah, I do. I felt like there were a lot of, well, as you know, there's tons of creators out there, and tons of information about the parks. And occasionally I would find one or two articles that would talk about specific things for introverts. And but yeah, I just felt like there was kind of a missing piece there. Um, and yeah, and the social media aspect of it, it's kind of, I definitely prefer to be behind the camera and
Mhm.
not really be out there. I'm not necessarily a creator, or I don't know if I'd call myself anything like that. But it's, I love to share knowledge and share it to fellow introverts, to
Yeah.
help them out. And if it comes to, if I have to be a little bit more outgoing or extroverted to get in there and test something out for everyone, I'm willing to do it.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. It does look like you seem to have like your community has really kind of grown, which I think is really exciting. I have to imagine that you've had people reach out to you about like, tips and stuff and sort of how you've been able to really help them and find things. What are some of like the most commonly asked questions? If you know of them, what are some of the most commonly asked questions that you get from people who are maybe looking for some advice or something that's kind of, inspired you to write a specific article or to put up a different post? Like, what are some of those things that are kind of most common that people are looking for?
That's a good question, because it a lot of the times it does revolve around dealing with crowds, and so it kind of inspires me to think of different strategies like that. Um, whether you're going down a different pathway, if you have two presented to you, one is less crowded than the other, or a lot of times people will just want to know, how can I get away from it all, even if it's just for 5 minutes. So that's where a lot of the quiet spot um, posts come through. And some of it too is just kind of planning and figuring out, the lay of the land and understanding park procedures and how things work ahead of time, so that when you actually get to the park, you're not as overwhelmed. So sometimes people will ask about, how certain things work, or, do I need to be here at this time, or how do I do this? And some of it seems, very basic, step by step, but sometimes you need that. Sometimes you don't know, especially if you don't go to the parks all the time, you don't know how to handle, rope dropping or different
Yeah.
scenarios. So
Yeah, that that makes total sense. It's funny you mentioned rope dropping because that can be like one of the most um for me anyway, that can definitely be one of the most one of the most daunting experiences because you just suddenly look over your shoulder and you're like, oh my God, there are so many people that are behind me and gonna like push me over, race to whatever, and it can be really stressful. Um, so I I have an enormously big question for you, and this is something that like almost knocked me out of my seat when I saw this on your page. Okay, so your whole vibe is, like if I'm looking at your post, you've got like secret entrance into Mexico, and you've got, 3 ways to get get out quick after firework crowds, and then, like places to cool off and recharge, all that kind of stuff. And then you have a Star Cruiser love letter, which I've never got to go on the Star Cruiser. I do not have that money to spend on it, regrettably, and now I will never get the chance. Um, I really want to do it. It seems, however, like an introvert's worst nightmare because from what I gather, you have to be on all the time. You don't have to be, but you can, to make the most out of the experience. It's better to maybe be in character and to kind of get involved in stuff. And there's, a lot of people, a lot of stuff going on. how was that for you as someone who is a self-proclaimed introvert to be on the Star Cruiser and to get into that? And also, like, did you participate to its full extent, or were you kind of like more in the shadows, sort of just, enjoying it for what it actually was?
Right. Well, do we have time? Because I can go on and on about Star Cruiser.
I have all the time in the world. My wife just texted me. My daughter's asleep. I am good. Go for it.
Perfect. Perfect. No, yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I loved that whole experience. We were actually lucky enough to do it two voyages. Um,
So
and really
jealous.
the only reason why we did the second one is because the annual pass discount briefly while they offered it. But
Right, right.
um, yeah, so it's funny because you would think it would be the worst place for an introvert. And I found it to be kind of the opposite because you decide how involved you want to be, and so it's not as if you're forced into situations. um, and so yeah, if you want to hold back and just watch from a distance, you can. If you want to really be involved in the storyline, you can, follow the characters around and get involved that way. But the other thing too that the actors, they do such a good job of is they'll see you and they may approach you and they'll kind of gauge the situation, but they'll also just have a very one-on-one conversation. It's not as if you're, on display in the atrium having to solve a puzzle in front of people or some wacky thing. You're sitting, in the lounge, and all of a sudden Wraith comes up to you and has what ends up being a very deep conversation about life, and kind of inspires you to think a different way. And so it's kind of these really one-off personal stories that you experience, and then it all kind of wraps up into the whole, big storyline that everybody takes part in. But
Sure.
yeah, it felt a lot more intimate than you would think,
Yeah.
on that ship. So it didn't feel like you were in this huge group.
That's incredible. I mean, I've heard that, I've listened to a lot of different, people talk about it, and I've seen vlogs and stuff of people, showing it off and whatever. But it is kind of hard to, I think, capture from someone who's never been on it before. It seems a little bit difficult to capture that sort of one-on-one kind of um uh, experience that you can get on it. Because from my vantage point, it seems like it's just nonstop all the time, whether you're doing a mission or you're hanging out or you're waiting your turn to do lightsaber training or whatever. um but that's great. I didn't realize that was the case, and I'm so regrettably this is all fraught because it's closing. And I know a lot of people are really disappointed about that. I'm sure you are as well. But one of the other things that I think of too is it's got to be kind of fun too to just sort of be a different person completely. Like, did you have a character when you were on there?
So yeah, we didn't go all out, and I think that helped because I think, yeah, I was a little overwhelmed on, okay, what is my outfit going to be, and where am I from, and so yeah, we just kind of went in just as ourselves, and I think maybe that put the pressure off a little bit. um, but and that's the other thing too, is you'll find people that are way into it, and then other people that are, casual fans. And so all walks of life go in there, and yeah, it's just this, it's a place to be. So
Yeah.
there were surprisingly a lot of moments where you could just chill, on the ship and just do your
Hmm.
own thing, and yeah, it was great.
Man, that sounds really great. If you were able to do it again, would you try to go all out? I mean, is that something that you would be interested in the slightest?
Possibly. Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been big into Halloween, and
Mm.
so kind of coming up with costumes for Halloween is fun, and so I think it would translate well to coming up with something on the ship. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'm definitely, I would love to do it again, just because there's so many different storylines that you can go on,
Yeah.
and I feel like I've only, scratched the surface on some of them. So
Yeah, I feel like the Jedi path would be the way to go for me anyway. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't. The thing is, like, I don't know how I would even respond. Like, how it would have to be like totally spur of the moment for me, or like a day of decision of like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna do this, and I guess I'm gonna commit. Because if I'm able to like commit to something that's a little bit outside my comfort zone, I feel okay about it. But it takes me a lot of like self-convincing to be like, okay, I can totally do that. Like I'm actually the opposite of you. I'm not into Halloween at all. I don't love dressing up. I don't like doing anything that like draws attention to myself. It makes me very, very uncomfortable. Which is funny because I have a podcast, but I'm like no one sees me on it, right? So it's just kind of my voice, and I don't feel like I'm pulling attention onto myself and in any unnecessary way. But last year for Halloween, we did go to Mickey's Not So Scary, and Paige wanted to dress up as Mary Poppins and Bert, and our daughter was a penguin. And we did like the whole like I had like the whole striped, ketchup and mustard jacket and the pork pie hat, and she was in her white outfit, and our daughter was like the most adorable penguin. And I was like, "Ah, God, I hate this. Like, I don't want. I feel so stupid in this outfit." And we get on the bus, and people are kind of like looking at us as we're going, and not really saying anything, but you can tell like people are looking and kind of getting a feel of all the costumes and such. And then we get to the park, and it's like everyone's doing it, right? So many people are dressed up, and we got like so many compliments and comments from people. Um, Probably just because we had our baby, but my wife goes all out for Halloween. Like she does not want to get anything that looks cheap or that looks like it's homemade or put together. She's like, it's got to be perfect. Like she will spend hours and hours and days trying to find the right accessories and the right pieces to make it look good. And she did that. It was fantastic. But we got mistaken by as like characters by somebody who actually thought that we were there for like pictures and stuff. It was, I mean, I don't look like
Oh wow.
Bert. But it was funny, and so once we were kind of into it a little bit, I was like, yeah, this is kind of cool. But as soon as like we were halfway through the day, I was like, I'm gonna go change. I don't want to do this anymore. Bailed out of my outfit, partly because it was really hot, and I wanted to get into shorts and a t-shirt, and also partly because I was like, this is just way too much attention on me, and I'm tired of people calling me out, as I'm just walking down the street.
Right. It is interesting because I feel like I'm definitely more extroverted at the parks or on the
Mm,
Star Cruiser than in my normal day-to-day life. And I think it's just because it's something you like, you're interested in the characters, or you're interested in something the park offers, and so you just naturally are more willing to do things you wouldn't normally
yeah,
do.
yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of like wearing the like a birthday button or something. You like the attention, but maybe not all day long.
I would never do that. I would literally never wear a birthday button. Um, it would just make me so uncomfortable, and I would hate for anyone. I don't want anyone to ever say anything to me about anything. I would just rather be completely ignored. The farthest out I'll go is I'm a big fan of. They're not a sponsor of the show. Boy, I wish they were. But I'm a big fan of like Roosevelt's, the button down shirts, right? I'm sure you're familiar with them.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
I have a handful of those, and I definitely wear them to the parks, and they're pretty flashy and whatever. But um yeah, that's about as far as I'll go as far as like going all out or being flashy or anything like that. Just you can still kind of sort of blend in a little bit without standing out too much, but you still have a little bit of fun and really get into it. I definitely find though that I do struggle to be super extroverted when I'm at the parks. I don't know where I fall in line to where I become a little bit more extroverted. On your website, I saw that you had information about alcohol. You called it liquid courage. I think that the more I drink, the more extroverted I get. Um, but I'm sure that's a little bit of everyone to some degree, I guess.
That's true. Yes, I know. Yeah, it's either liquid courage or liquid extroversion. Um, and really it's just, I mean, I hope it doesn't make me sound or look like an alcoholic because I'm not. But um, I do feel like if I can have one or two drinks, then I feel like I'm just a regular person.
Yeah,
It kind
yeah.
of puts me into that normal, not quote unquote normal state.
Hmm.
Whereas, I don't think extroverts necessarily need that first drink or two just to kind
Yeah.
of settle in and be social. But for me, I do like that. So
I don't think that they realize how good they have it, extroverts. I think they've got it pretty darn good. Um, yeah, that's cool. Do you have a specific place that you I don't know, that you like to kind of sit down and have a drink and relax or go hide? I guess it could be any park really, anywhere, but is there anywhere specifically that you can think of that's like a special spot for you that you prefer to go to?
Let's see if I have to narrow it down. Well,
It could be a
Nomad
couple.
Lounge, I think. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I was gonna say
Nomad
it could be a
Lounge is
couple, but Nomad Lounge for sure.
yeah. Yeah, that place, it just the whole vibe of it. I love sitting out on that on the patio,
Mhm.
and the music and just the atmosphere, and the drinks are great too. They
Oh yeah.
have a variety of cocktails and things. So yeah, Nomad is the place to be for me. I also do love Baseline Tap House at Hollywood Studios.
Mhm.
Once again, kind of the vibe of that place, and the music is so unique. You just don't hear that music in any other parts of the park. But
Right.
um, those two are definitely up there on my list.
Yeah, Nomad Lounge is always high up on my list because it is a great place to just go and kind of be. I mean, when I first went there, Paige and I felt like we found a secret. Like it really truly felt like I don't think anyone else knows about this place, because we were like some of the only people on the patio, and you see all these people walking by on the bridge, and you're like, I think that this might be a secret, and it truly does feel like it when you're there, which I really really like, and really really do appreciate quite a bit. Um, yeah, that's awesome. It's funny. I think the more I think about it, I'm almost wondering if like Animal Kingdom might be the quintessential introverts park, starting to feel that way a
I can
little
see
bit,
that.
you know? Um, there's
Yeah,
this
yeah, I can see that.
there's this spot where if you're walking through Asia and you are heading away from uh Expedition Everest, there's a spot where you can go off the main road and up on a hill, and it's like it's not that it's probably a lot shorter than it feels, but you can it's like a little trail, and you just kind of go up and you take this trail that goes up and over where everyone else is, and it's incredible. Like I actually didn't pass a single person when I went up there, and like those kind of things for me are the ideal scenario when I'm in a park, is to try to find little places that no one else goes. And so I guess I asked you about, like quiet places to drink. And do you have any other like specific spots that stick out to you that you're like, and again, I mean, if you don't want to give away your secrets, that's fine. But is there anywhere that you're like, man, I don't think a lot of people know about this and it feels really, really good.
Right. That's funny because whenever I post about these spots, everybody like DMs me and says, "Don't tell everybody. This is my
Yeah.
spot." But
Yeah.
it's okay. We can all take turns. I jokingly say
Yeah.
that we'll all have a convention and we'll just two or three of us at a time. We can handle that. But
Exactly.
let's see. I talk about this one fairly often just because it's such a good one. But in Magic Kingdom, Liberty Square, behind the Ye Old Christmas Shop, I think is the
Mm,
exact name of it. There are some tables there, but then right behind the building, there are two benches pushed up against the wall,
yeah.
and it's covered and shaded. Have you ever been back there?
I have been back there. Yeah.
Okay, you know it. Okay.
Uh-huh.
It's that is a good spot, and it's always pretty quiet. I know occasionally they'll have, character meet and greets back there, but for the most part, it's quiet, it's shaded, so you don't have the sun or the rain, so it's a good one.
Yeah, that is a really good spot. I just sent you in our chat here, I just sent you a high res version of the Animal Kingdom map. And I will go ahead and I will put this in the show notes for people to listen to. Let me know when you see that map.
Oh yeah, there we
Okay.
go.
So you see Africa, right? 33. And then you follow the little trail down. You see how there's a little split off up there by the water?
Yes, I have been on this path. Yes.
That's the path that I'm talking about. And it's just like this little tiny gem that you would never really think to look for unless you just kind of were looking to get around people quickly or to get away from all the madness. And that spot is truly a miracle that it's in there. Same with the Jungle Trek. I kind of feel the same way about that one. But yeah, that little spot specifically is the place to go for me when it comes to, getting away from the crowds and finding a little spot to kind of recuperate after being in the heat and the utter exhaustion that is Animal Kingdom.
Exactly. That's a great one. Yeah, I love, yeah, like you said, Animal Kingdom just has a lot of what appear to be hidden pathways, but it's just
Hmm.
because there's so much foliage and everything around you. But you can really feel like you're the only people in there sometimes, depending
It
on where you
it's the
turn.
same thing with like Tree of Life, right? If you get out of It's Tough to Be a Bug, RIP, and then you just don't rush out of it, but you kind of just take your time and you hang around like the base of the tree. There's so much to see, and like that's kind of a popular place, I think, for a lot of like photo pass stuff, right? Where people kind of get their picture by the tree. But there are so many places by the Tree of Life where you can just kind of escape and disappear for a little while, which I just find to be an absolute delight. So yeah, that's really cool. I yeah, I think Animal Kingdom might think they might be onto something over there. And it's big
I think
enough
so.
to accommodate because it's one of the largest. I think it might be the largest park out of all six of them. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. I'm very curious to see what will happen with the whole Dino Land thing because that area has been nice and quiet for a while. So I'm
yeah, I
gonna lose
mean,
that.
you would hope that it would kind of deter attention, but it won't. Um, Dino Land is a shame, but it is a nice place to kind of get out of the way. There's a little area back there where, um, kind of near like the world's largest pin truck, in that area. There's a little kind of like a wooded area where you can meet like Dino Chip and Dale or whatever. And that's a really nice spot too. So yeah, that'll be interesting for sure to see what happens with that because it is it's definitely not my favorite area. They do need to update it desperately, but
Sure.
it is a nice little spot to kind of, you know, take a minute. Um well, cool. Well, do you have anything like else that you feel like as we kind of sort of wrap this up a little bit here, do you have anything else specifically that you feel like, people should know, or anything that you think is important when it comes to like, tackling parks as an introvert?
Good question. I think, yeah, I mean, I think we've covered some of the big things of, finding places to recharge, um, quiet spots, dealing with the crowds. Um, yeah, I can't think of anything specific. I'm trying to take a quick second here and
All
think.
good. While you're thinking about it, I'm still looking through your website, and some of the topics like audience participation attractions, acting like an extrovert, uh, introvert friendly attractions. That's pretty good. Um, you know what that is? I'll pivot a little bit. What do you think is the best introvert friendly attraction in your opinion?
Ooh, I probably would go with People Mover.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
good.
it's relaxing, but also it's just a way for you to kind of take in the whole Tomorrowland area. I mean, and there's just something about even if you've been in the park multiple times, just kind of having this bird's eye view and seeing the space and seeing all the other people from a distance, it just kind of, I don't know, it's reassuring because you
Yeah.
you feel like you're part of it, but you're not, and this is where this is that, you kind of know where
Yeah.
you're at. And it's also really nice to plan it around like sunset time or even during the
Hmm.
fireworks. That's a unique way to see the fireworks and not be in the crowd. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think People Mover is just that's the one for me. Yeah.
Cool. One of the final questions then I had is I also noticed, and I wanted to bring this up because I did see it on your site when I was doing research and stuff. You have a section too about talking about going to Disney all by yourself, which I would love to hear your thoughts about that because I certainly have thoughts about it, and those are that it is wonderful. But I'm definitely curious to hear like what your perspective is on that. It's very difficult to do for people who go with their family for trips, but yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear what you have to say about that specifically.
So yeah, I think solo trips can work for most people, but I do think that they work the best if you're more independent, just kind of more
Hmm.
of a self-confident person. If you're used to running around town running errands on your own in your day-to-day life, then I think a solo park visit won't, it'll just come naturally to you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for some, I think it could be intimidating. Not even just the travel aspect, getting, navigating the airports and getting to the parks, but then being inside the parks by yourself. But there are quite a few, solo travelers at Disney parks. So it's not as if you're going to be the only one. So I think that makes it easier too. You're not going to be that one random weird
Yeah.
dude by yourself
Weirdo.
necessarily. But
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think it for me, I've done it a few times, and it's a little awkward. It's a little weird at first, but then once you get the hang of it and you realize kind of the freedom that you have, then it's actually pretty nice.
I've spent one day in a park by myself, and it was pretty great. Obviously,
Mhm.
the best trips for me are with my family. I love being there with my wife, and going with my daughter was just like next level. It was unbelievable how fun it was to go with a toddler. Um, but yeah, I've had the experience to do it one time, and it was great. I mean, you just walk on to whatever, and kind of just sort of do whatever you need to do. Um, my dream is that I would love to be dropped off at Disney for like a week by myself, and I would like to just photograph the park for a week. I mean, that would be like a total dream. I don't have to get paid. Disney can have the rights to all the photos if they want them. I just would love to do it for the fun of it. That sounds like an ideal trip to me. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but if I could ever swing it, man, that'd be the way to go for sure.
That would be nice. Yeah, it's solo trips are nice too if you can just walk around and take it all in. Maybe you don't even do a whole lot of rides. You just kind of walk at a leisurely pace and
Yep.
stop when you see something interesting.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. I am going to conclude with one final simple question. What is your favorite Disney ride if you have one?
Tough question.
Sorry, I keep hitting you with these hard ones. I apologize.
No, you're good. I have a hard time narrowing things down. I,
Mhm.
I don't like to play favorites,
That's
but
okay.
um, goodness, it would probably be Spaceship Earth.
Yeah.
Um, it's just I remember my very first visit to Epcot. I didn't realize there was even a ride or attraction
Yeah.
inside of that
I was the
structure.
I was the exact same way. I had no idea until I went there for the first time.
So yeah, I was just blown away that there was all of this inside
Mhm.
this structure, and I do like the educational element. I'm curious to see if, well, talks of that have kind of gone away, but I'm curious to see how they change that. But I do like kind of the history and the communication aspect of learning about that.
Right.
And then kind of that whole building your future at the end is just kind of that interactive element too, is
Yeah.
just fun.
That's cool. The animatronics in that creep me out, and we got stuck one time for like it had to have been like 10 minutes minimum, right in the scene with Michelangelo and like it was just it made me very uncomfortable. But it is a great ride. I like it a lot. It's always a short queue. And it's a good one to be sure. Well, thank you so much for coming on our show and chatting with me. It was really great to have you. And when I discovered your account, I was like, I need to talk to this person pronto because I felt like you had a lot of interesting things to say, and indeed you did. I would love to, if you could, just to let people know where to find you and what promote whatever. I mean, your website, your Instagram. We'd love to hear where people can find you and follow along.
Well, sure. Thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun. It's good to chat with a fellow Dintrovert.
Mm.
But yeah, so
I
you
still love
can,
that phrase.
yeah. So you can find dintroverts.com is the website. I do try to keep that updated, and then most active on Instagram, the same as at Dintroverts, just a letter D in front of Introverts.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and I look forward to continuing on following along with your adventures and everything you got going on. So, thanks so much.
Yeah, no, thank you. This has been good.
Okay, everyone. Well, that is going to do it for us. Thank you again, all of you, so much for listening and supporting the show. You can continue to do so by leaving us a kind rating and review on Apple Podcasts. That goes a long way, and we really do appreciate it a lot. And finally, we want to say thank you to our incredible sponsor, Neo Sabers and Deep Cut. You can get 10% off your first order with both of these incredible businesses using the code TPA10 at checkout. All their links are going to be in our show notes. Again, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you, and we will catch you next time.